Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Chari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Sri Radha Madhava ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagwatam ki jai. Go Premanandi. Hari Hari Bo. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Name Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Satayine. So we're reading from first canto, 6th chapter, text 37. Sutta uvacha evam sambhasya Bhagavan Narada Vasavi Sutam Amantrya Dhinam Lanayan Yayav Yadritchiko Munihi Sutta uvacha evam sambhasya Bhagavan Narado Vasavi Sutam Amantravinam Pranayam Yayo Yadritchiko Muni Sutta uvacha evam sambhasya Bhagavan Narado Vasavi Sutam Amantravinam Ranayan Yayo Yadritchiko Munihi Sutta uvacha Evam sambhasya Bhagavan Visutam Amantravina Ranayan Sutta uvacha Evam sambhasya bhagavan Do vasavi sutam Amantra vinam ranayan Yayo yadrichiko muni. Ladies? Sutta uvacha Evam sambhasya bhagavan Narado vasavi sutam Mantra vinam ranayan Yayo yadrichiko munihi. Sutta uvacha Evam sambhasya bhagavan Narado vasavi sutam Amantra vinam ranayan Yayo yadrikshito munihi. Sutta Sutta Goswami Uvacha said, Evam thus, Sambhasya addressing, Bhagavan transcendently powerful, Naradaha Narada Muni Vasavi named Vasavi Satyavati Sutam son Amantrya inviting Bhinam instrument Ranayan vibrating Yayao went Yadrichchikshaha wherever willing Munihi the sage. Sutta Goswami said, thus addressing Vyasadeva, Srila Narada Muni took leave of him, and vibrating on his Veena instrument, he left to wander at his free will. So he just finished describing how he became Krishna conscious, and now he's leaving. And it says here, Prabhupada adds in the translation, I don't see it in the word for word, free will. Well, the word yajikshika, wherever, so wherever willing, yeah. So now it is there. So Narada Muni being liberated, not being restricted. He can go wherever he wants. Every living being, thank you, is anxious for full freedom because that is his transcendental nature. And this freedom is obtained only through the transcendental service of the Lord. Illusioned by the external energy, everyone thinks that he is free, but actually he is bound by the laws of nature. A conditioned soul cannot freely move from one place to another, even on this earth, and what to speak of on one planet to another. But a full-fledged free soul, like Narada, always engaged in chanting the Lord's glory, is free to move not only on earth, but also in any part of the universe, as well as in any part of the spiritual sky. We can just imagine the extent and unlimitedness of his freedom, which is as good as that of the Supreme Lord. There is no reason or obligation for his traveling, and no one can stop him from his free movement. No reason or obligation means he can go where he wants, when he wants. And as we know from reading Bhagwatam, the Narada Muni often shows up in the right time, in the right place when there's a crisis, or when his advice is needed or his foretelling is needed. He shows up by his own will. Similarly, the transcendental system of devotional service is also free. It may or may not develop in a particular person, even after he undergoes all the detailed formulas. Similarly, the association of the devotee is also free. One may be fortunate to have it, or one may not have it, even after thousands of endeavors. Therefore, in all spheres of devotional service, freedom is the main pivot. Without freedom, there is no execution of devotional service. The freedom surrendered to the Lord does not mean that the devotee becomes dependent in every respect. To surrender unto the Lord through the transparent medium of the spiritual master is to attain complete freedom of life. So, when you're going from conditioned to liberated, then you achieve freedom through discipline. Because unless you control yourself, you will be controlled by Maya. As we all know, we have experience. So freedom is kind of a paradox in the beginning of any kind of discipline, because you get freedom through discipline. Yes? Yeah, so it's a paradox, because we want freedom, which we would define as doing whatever we want. But we understand you can't actually do whatever you want. You think you're doing what you want, often you're being controlled by the modes of nature. So that's why beginning of devotional service is accepting Guru and then accepting the discipline. And the discipline becomes your eventual freedom. Because here it said that the freedom of a devotee is that ultimately he becomes independent, which Prabhupada means here. He's independent of the modes of nature. Another point Prabhupada's making is that just the sentence before that, he says, without freedom there's no execution of devotional service. So, of course, we have this perennial question, why did we leave Krishna? And one of the answers is that the nature of jiva is that jiva has freedom. The nature of tatastha is that he has freedom. So there always is that freedom. And to leave Krishna as a tatastha, that means you can go down or you can go up. You can make that choice. So then some devotees would say, but Krishna knows everything. He knows what we'll do. So why did he give us freedom? That was a bad decision. And there are several answers. One answer is that we call the jiva, sometimes when we refer to the jiva, we refer to the jiva as jiva tattva. So tattva means truth. So when we say, what's the tattva? It's like, what's the nature? What's the essential nature or essential truth? So the essential nature of the jiva, the tattva, is independence, because independence is the nature. Independence is what distinguishes matter from life. Matter doesn't have independence. So how do you distinguish? Well, you can say matter doesn't grow and we do. That's of course one of the ways you distinguish. But fundamentally, when we say jiva tattva, it's independence. You can choose. Matter can't choose. That's the nature of jiva. That's the tattva of jiva. You and I can all choose. And that can get us into trouble. But it also gets us out of trouble, because now we can choose Krishna instead of Maya. And once we chose Maya, it got us in trouble. If once coming here, you complain to Krishna, why did you give me freedom? And Krishna says, okay, I'll take it away. Now you can't choose to go back to Godhead because your freedom is taken away. So the freedom that got you, that got us in this mess is the freedom that gets us out of this mess. So is freedom bad? No. And because the nature of the jiva is that they have free choice, in this purport and other places in the Bhagwatam, Prabhupada says it's the nature of the jiva. They don't want to be constrained. And one time the British told Gandhi, they said, we don't want to give you independence because you won't know how to use it and you'll destroy the country. And he said, I don't care if we destroy the country, we just want independence. So the point being is that the nature of the jiva is that they're independent. So they want independence, no matter what. We don't want to be restricted. So that's our nature. So to say to Krishna, why did you give me independence? It's not actually accurate. It might be a fleeting thought, but by nature we don't want to be constrained. And then Prabhupada is saying here, without freedom there's no execution of devotional service. And then the next sentence, freedom surrendered to the Lord. So now I have freedom, so what do I do with it? I give it to Krishna. Which materialists, non-devotees, they would think it's a bad decision. You know, you have your freedom, now you give it to God, He takes it away, He makes you do what He wants you to do. And it's exactly what they do when they fall in love. Isn't it? So, you're surrendered to God, you need your freedom. And then the same person who tells you that, you meet him next year and he's married and he has a child and he's working hard to support the family because he's surrendered to the family. So it's not that nobody's going to surrender. Wherever there's love, there's surrender. That's just natural. You give where there's love. So when we talk about surrender to Krishna, sometimes we are defining surrender more in military terms. When one country surrenders to another country, and then you're made prisoners of war. But if we study surrender to Krishna, we really see what is meant by that word, sharanam, is it's in its ultimate definition, it's a symptom of love. That's what you do when you love. You give yourself entirely. And just like we have the example of the gopis. And why are the gopis glorified? Gopis are glorified because they've given themselves entirely to Krishna. That's why they're so magnanimous. They have not an ounce of any independent desire. Right? And that's their glory. So I wouldn't want to be a gopi because they have no independence. They're just completely controlled. No, we don't say that. We say, no, that's the bhakti we worship. The worship of total surrender. So when I was distributing books as a brahmachari, sometimes people would say things like, oh, you're just working for your guru and you're enslaved by him and so on. And I always found that funny because they were doing the same thing for their family. And of course I wasn't married, so I thought, well, if I ever get married, that's what I'll be doing. Now the money and everything goes to the temple, then it'll go to the wife. But I'll be doing the same thing. I'll be out there doing something to make money. So I never felt that I was being exploited at all. I just felt that where there's love, that's where your money goes. And that's my experience. Because I raise money, I raise donations. And I always see money goes where there's affection, where people like you, they give money. It's not because they have it or they don't have it, it's because there's affection, there's surrender, you give. Or service, you give where there's affection. Right? Where you like someone, you want to serve them. So the word surrender, when it has a military context, is a bit frightening. And of course, we have history on this planet of slavery in America, in South Africa, even I've heard in this country. And that's a really frightening word, isn't it? But for a devotee, they want to become the slave of Krishna. Because the slave means whatever he wants, I do. Right? Like I have no independence. And people, materialists would think, what a horrible position to be in. You have no independence. You're just a slave. And that's the ultimate ambition of a devotee, to be a slave. But we understand that slavery ultimately is the slavery of love, because you're enslaved by your love. You're controlled by your love for Krishna. So that's our ultimate goal. And for us, divine slavery is the ultimate freedom, because when you become a divine slave, Maya leaves you alone. And when you become so-called independent to do whatever you want, there's no way you can do whatever you want. You end up becoming addicted to so many things in this world, and you're definitely not doing whatever you want. And especially nowadays, addictions are increasing because of the atmosphere of our society. Most people have become addicted to their smartphones. They're always looking at them. They wake up in the morning, they turn them on. That's a sign of addiction. You have to do something right away. Did you know that? If that's the first thing you do in the morning, you're addicted to your phone. And I'm serious. Addiction meaning as you would be addicted to any addictive substance. You can't live without it. In fact, they actually did an experiment, I believe it was with young people, and they did this experiment in different countries because they wanted to test differences of culture, and they asked people to have no internet, digital devices for 24 hours. And in some countries, they couldn't do it. They, after like 12 hours, they just broke down. I think it was somewhere in South America. I think Indians were the best. They had more discipline. But in some countries, they actually couldn't do it, which proved they're actually addicted. Of course, we don't think we're addicted, but we are. So, freedom through surrender, and surrender as a symptom of love is total freedom, and then so much freedom that Prabhupada says, look at Narada Muni's freedom. He can go wherever he wants. That's amazing, isn't it? That Krishna empowered him. And can Krishna trust us with that much freedom? Look at Narada Muni. He can say, okay, I'm going to go here, and I'm going to deal with this situation now. Wow, that's a lot of that would require Krishna having a lot of faith in you, don't you think? So I'm going to empower you to go. Just for example, if Krishna empowers us, right, that means he trusts us, because when we're empowered, what could happen? We could misuse it, right? Okay, I'm going to give you $100,000 to do this project. That means I trust you, but it also means you could misuse it. You could take that $100,000 and say, well, this is really nice Mercedes I have my eyes on, and it's about $95,000. I think I'd rather buy that than develop this project. You could do that. And it's been done. It happens. Devotees do it. So, if we are going to be empowered to spread Krishna consciousness, Krishna is going to empower those of us who, what? Who are trustworthy, who can be given freedom and won't misuse it. And the more you can utilize that freedom, the more Krishna is happy to give it. Here, take this, I trust you. And when we can't use it, then Krishna is not happy to give it, or he might take it away. Well, I gave it to you, you didn't use it, I will take it away. And often, when we require facility or empowerment and we don't get it, one of the areas to look at is, does Krishna feel that I can utilize it well? Am I trustworthy? There was a devotee, he told me a story that He was in Ukraine for many years. It's probably 20 years ago. He was the top book distributor, and had a big ceremony once, and he was honored, glorified as the number one book distributor. Year after year after year, nobody could compete. Sri Sri Radha Govinda ki jai. And he said one year it completely went to his head. And then he said the day after that ceremony, he went on the street and not one person would take a book from him. And he said, I immediately understood that because it had gone to my head, Krishna said, okay, the fun's over. I'm not going to empower you if you are thinking this power is yours. And you see the opposite also. That when a devotee is able to utilize what Krishna gives, then Krishna gives him more and more and more. And of course we saw that with Prabhupada. The interesting thing about Prabhupada, at least what I saw, is that, Prabhupada had a very humble beginning. He didn't have any disciples, didn't have any facilities or money and so on. And then gradually it built up. And then when Prabhupada left, as we know, he went from 0 to 108. So that's, it's a lot of property and a lot of money. And we were discussing the other day, Prabhupada's disciples were very surrendered. So one devotee wrote a poem to Prabhupada and he said that I've never seen people as surrendered to you as to anybody in the history of the world. There's no one has given more to anyone than they've given to you. So now Prabhupada's in this situation where he has thousands of people who will do anything he asks, anytime he asks. Facilities everywhere, beautiful rooms and so forth. And we didn't see there was any change in Srila Prabhupada. Oh, I'm the guru of the Hare Krishna movement. I'm the one who's predicted by Lord Chaitanya to save the world. And we didn't see that. Even one time, when they were talking about this prediction, and Prabhupada very meekly said, no, not the prediction. There was the particular prediction was that someone would come and do it. And Prabhupada very shyly, meekly said, do you think they're talking about me? So that was his mood. He was never influenced by the opulence. He was that same person, 26 Second Avenue, and now Mayapur Festival, thousands of devotees years later. He was the same person. So that's what's required for Krishna to give us the freedom, because Krishna is happy to give us freedom if we can utilize it. So the other point that Prabhupada makes here, a conditioned soul cannot freely move from one place to another. And we could say conditioned soul doesn't have a whole lot of freedom, because the very meaning of condition means the word condition. It's interesting that Prabhupada uses it, and we understand conditioned to be like a habit, like you've become habituated to act and think in a certain way. But what's interesting is psychologists use the same word. So I don't know if Prabhupada borrowed it from them or it's just coincidental, or Vedic psychology uses the word, and I've never studied to understand if condition is the Sanskrit word that Prabhupada's translated. I mean, we have the word samskara. There may be other words. And samskara could be habit. And samskara means more impression. Impressions on the heart. But it's the same idea. So maybe samskara is the word that Prabhupada is basing this conditioning on. But how can a conditioned soul be free? How can a person who's habituated to certain activities be free? They can't be. So you have to be unconditioned to be free. Just like if you're an alcoholic, you're bound to drink. The definition of alcoholic is you drink every day, as far as I understand. Yeah. I read this statement, it's really interesting. said, we are not our worst enemy. We are our only enemy. So as, being unable to control ourselves, we become our only enemy. And that's the meaning of condition. Now, on the Sunday feast, what was her name? One girl, I forgot her name. Krishna Leka, maybe. From Croatia? Krishna Leka. She was saying, when I became a devotee, I understood I was not the body, and I was ready for self-realization, but then I didn't realize it. And how is it that I can know in my head, but I don't act it, I don't practice it. And that's the meaning of conditioned. So first you understand, so we understand what it really means to be a conditioned soul, because we've understood everything, and okay, now I've understood everything, why am I still habituated to this or to that? Why can't I just give it up? Why do I still think I'm a man? I understand I'm not. Why is it hard to give up this or give up that? I understand I should give it. That's the meaning of conditioned soul. It's a habit, right? So it has to be replaced. It has to be purified. So obviously, until you're liberated, there's no complete freedom, because as long as we're conditioned, conditioning is subconscious. We act certain ways because of programming. Now, Prabhupada once said, the reason Ravi Shankar was so good at sitars, that he's been playing sitar for 1,000 lives. So that's why he's good at it. And the reason we're so good at sense gratification is we've been playing that for more than 1,000 lives. So there's devotees, they always wonder. It said, I'm chanting my rounds, I'm hearing Bhagwatam, I'm doing service and so forth. And today I chanted really good rounds, but later in the day, these conditioned tendencies, they attack me. And the reason is because we've practiced them. And Prabhupada gives the example of that music school, and if you've learned how to play piano, they'll charge you more because they have to unteach you, because they have their own method. So, when you practice something, you get good at it. And if you practice thinking of yourself and how to enjoy this world for many lifetimes, that's just natural how you think. It's you see something, oh, that looks enjoyable. It's spontaneous, isn't it? Isn't that what Prabhupada meant by the mental platform when he said accepting, rejecting? We're conditioned to look at things in terms of, do I like it or don't I like it? Oh, immediate response, oh, I don't like that. Oh, that looks good. Can I have one? Isn't it? That's the conditioned response. It could be an apple. It could be a car. It could be money. It could be the opposite sex. Ooh, I don't like that. Ooh, I like that. That's the conditioned response, right? When you're Krishna conscious, you don't have that conditioned response. The response is, can it be used for Krishna? There's no sensual interaction. It's just, can this be used for Krishna or can it not be? That's my only connection with it and my only response, because it's no longer conditioned by what I like or don't like. That's the mental platform. What I like, what I don't like. That's it. And Krishna consciousness, does Krishna like it or not like it? So if I think in terms of or I feel in terms of what Krishna likes and doesn't like, then I don't feel in terms of what I like. Now I'm free. Nothing can attract me because it's not about me anymore. That's real freedom. Could you imagine a whole movement of devotees on that level? Whoa. That's the real weapon. That's the real power. That's purity. As Prabhupada said, purity is the force. That's it. And when you don't have that purity, you have to pick up weapons to try to convert people, or you have to scare them with ideas of going to hell and so forth. But when you have that purity, then people get pulled in by it. It's so powerful. So the Prabhupada's saying, look how much freedom Krishna gave Narada Muni. He could go anywhere in the universe. That's amazing. Think about it. You know, sometimes there's stories when Narada Muni's traveling and he goes to Vaikuntha. So I have to meet with Lord Vishnu, I have a question, or we have a meeting, whatever, and he just goes. And then he comes back, and there's some situation, he shows up. Nalago Viramani Griva. Sometimes you hear the voice, the unembodied voice. So Narada Muni shows up. He predicts something's going to happen. So amazing freedom. So we can say that Krishna is willing to give freedom as much as we can use. And when Prabhupada was asked why he's not giving it, he said, we're devotees and we're meant to utilize the resources of this planet in Krishna's service, and other people are misusing it, and they're misusing it in the name of religion, so why doesn't Krishna give it to us? Because we're his devotees, like the Pandavas. They ultimately got back the kingdom. That was what Krishna wanted. So sometimes we feel like the Pandavas, right? We should be the stewards of the world. And Prabhupada said, he made a prediction, and he said, if Krishna gave you everything, you would sleep all day. Because it's kind of, business is finished. Like the rich son who squanders the money. So, actually what Prabhupada said, he said, if Krishna gave you everything, you would simply sleep. And Prabhupada told a story that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to have his devotees collect for a project, and he would spend the money on another project. And then he would request the money for the project that they thought they already collected for. So they'd say, Guru Maharaj, we already collected for that project. He'd say, no, I already spent it on something else. And so Prabhupada said, why did he do that? He said he always wanted to keep them engaged. Like there was always a need. We always had a need to do more. There was never enough. So Prabhupada's making the point, you have enough and you're not capable, you'll just sit back and do nothing. Okay, now we don't have to worry, Krishna's given everything. But with Prabhupada it was different, because Prabhupada was always ahead. He always had plans, so he always never had enough. And Prabhupada didn't like to sleep, and he didn't like to waste money. So Krishna could trust him. And certainly Prabhupada, he actually hated sleeping. So if Krishna gave Prabhupada the whole world, he definitely wouldn't go to sleep. He would definitely be wide awake using it. Right? Now Prabhupada makes another point here. It's quite interesting. The transcendental system of devotional service is also free. So the whole purport, he's talking about the freedom of Narada Muni, the bondage of the conditioned soul. Now he's switching freedom, and he's applying it to the concept of devotional service appearing in the heart, like bhakti appearing in the heart. And he's saying that's also free. In other words, you can't just follow rules and regulations, say, okay, Krishna, I did this for 10 years, so you owe me 25 euros of bhakti. When do I get it? How do I cash in? It's not like that. So let's read what Prabhupada's saying. Similarly, the transcendental system of devotional service is also free. It may or may not develop in a particular person, even after he undergoes all the detailed formulas. Isn't that interesting? I've been doing this for so many years, so I should be on this level. So what is meant by this? What is meant by this is that devotional service, it's personal. And advancement is personal, because Krishna is allowing you to come in his association and come closer to him. And ultimately, love of God is the property of Krishna, and Krishna decides who gets it. And you can't, as one devotee said, you can't crash your way into Vaikuntha. We're just going to crash into gates. We're just going to... I've been chanting Hare Krishna for so many years, and I'm still not Krishna conscious, so I'm going to crash the gates of Vaikuntha. He says you can't do that. And so there was a story in which one of Prabhupada's wayward disciples ended up in Radhakund and became convinced by the preaching of the devotees in Radhakund that you cannot be Krishna conscious if you don't chant 64 rounds a day. It's impossible. And he actually left Prabhupada and he went with them, and then he wrote a letter to Prabhupada, or he sent a message through another devotee, that you can't be Krishna conscious. He's telling Prabhupada, you can't be Krishna conscious unless you chant 64 rounds a day. Kind of amazing feat of stupidity, I would say, beyond imagination. To instruct your spiritual master that he's not going to be Krishna conscious unless he chants 64 rounds a day. Okay. Something went wrong, and that shows the influence. Just the fact that he's in Radhakund listening to someone else was already a bad sign, and so he was already probably on the way out, and then he really fell. And so when Prabhupada heard that, he said that love of Krishna is what is Krishna's to give to you, and you can't, by some formula, 60, 16, 32, whatever. You can't just say, okay, I will do this, and Krishna is obliged to give it. Now, Prabhupada said if you chant 16 rounds in the regular principles, you'll get love of Krishna. And we can understand that Prabhupada, if he asks Krishna to validate that, Krishna will do it, because Prabhupada has love. So that's different. When you have love, you can say, Krishna this, and Krishna will do it. But before you have that love, what Prabhupada's saying is, Krishna's love is independent because it comes from him. So you can't just buy it by some rules and regulations or numbers. Look at Krishna, I did 64 rounds for the last 10 years. Where's the love? I want it, and I want it now. And if I don't get it now, I'm not going to chant anymore. So you decide. This is not fair. This is not like it's personal. You can't force someone to love you. So that was Prabhupada's point. You can't purchase love of Krishna by a number. That's up to Krishna to give you. So, you have any questions or comments? Okay. Yes.
Could you just point again about, you said Prabhupada said, Prabhupada said he chants 16 rounds, you will get love of God because he has love of God, and that's his perspective. Is that what you meant?
No, that he gave us that number, and it's not traditionally in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. You won't find 16 in any shastra or any recommendation. That was Prabhupada's decision for us that would be required. And so some people will say, well, that's not enough, and you need to chant 64. And Prabhupada never said that, and Prabhupada had promised that if you do that, and you follow 4 regular principles, he said, I promise I'll take you back to Godhead. So we understand that that was an agreement or arrangement that Krishna would validate for Prabhupada. It may be not traditionally the requirement, maybe there's more required, and Prabhupada's saying, for you, this is what you can do, and I will validate it. I will work it out with Krishna, so you can get Krishna consciousness for this price. But this is the minimum price. And so, okay, you do this, and I'll be your guarantor. You do this. So he works. So that's not stated anywhere, but that's how we understand it. Most devotees understand it that way. So, it's not what you know, it's who you know, kind of thing. Otherwise, you can say there may be more rules and regulations, but the mercy of the Guru is all powerful. It's like we were having this discussion yesterday about how to resolve problems, and I don't know if I was clear about it, or maybe I just started thinking about it afterwards, but you may analyze a solution to a problem, but you have to make sure that the methodology or that solution and the methods you use is pleasing to Prabhupada. Because if you try to solve a problem, maybe in a practical way, and it looks like a good solution, but the methodology is not pleasing to Prabhupada, we don't want to use it. So I think that's important. I don't want to try to become Krishna conscious in a way that Prabhupada doesn't want me to. There's a story about a devotee at the Gorpurnim festival who was not associating with the devotees. He actually built himself a treehouse, and he lived in the treehouse so he wouldn't associate with devotees. And he was chanting 64 rounds a day. And he rightly considered, if I am with the devotees in the program, I'll get distracted and talk, and so I want to be alone, and I can chant 64 rounds a day. So that was, I don't know what year it was, maybe 76 perhaps, 74, I'm not sure. But it was at the Gorpurnim festival, and one morning walk, apparently they were walking close by, and they told Prabhupada, there's so-and-so, he's living there, he wants to chant 64 rounds a day, he's not associating. And Prabhupada didn't say anything. And sometimes when Prabhupada doesn't say anything and devotees really want to get an answer, like a definitive answer on this, is it okay? They question it. So the next day they walked by the same place, and they don't always question, they just talk about it. That's so-and-so, so they reiterate what they said and then they elaborate on it. And then the devotee said, he's living there because he wants to chant 64 rounds a day. And so Prabhupada, he understands the mentality of disciples. So he understood that this disciple's desire to chant 64 rounds was actually personally motivated. It wasn't pure. It was like almost an avoidance of other instructions of Prabhupada, just to isolate himself. I don't want to associate with devotees. I don't want to be part of the festival. This, that, and the next thing, I just want to be aloof and chant. And so Prabhupada understood it was the wrong mentality. So when this devotee said, Srila Prabhupada, he's staying here and not associating because he wants to chant 64 rounds a day. Now, obviously, chanting 64 rounds a day is not bad. But in this situation, it was, because this devotee had a bad mentality. And Prabhupada, to clarify it, said, as soon as you say, I want, it's sense gratification. So if we interpret that in relation to the situation, Prabhupada's saying his chanting of 64 rounds is sense gratification. But, so you think, how could chanting 64 rounds a day be sense gratification? It doesn't make sense. But that was Prabhupada's point. It's sense gratification. Isn't that interesting? Why is it sense gratification? Because your guru didn't ask you to do this. He didn't ask Prabhupada, is it okay if I do this? He just did it. And that's why Prabhupada said, when you say, I want, it's sense gratification. Because you should ask your guru, is it okay? Is this what you want? There's another story where a devotee wanted to distribute books. And he was Prabhupada's servant. And he said, Prabhupada, can I go out on book distribution? Prabhupada said, yes, you can go, but without my blessings. Because I need you to serve me. So book distribution, we would say, is a way to get Prabhupada's mercy. As Prabhupada said, double mercy, you'll get Bhaktisiddhanta's mercy also. Triple mercy for you, you'll get your guru's mercy also. And then Prabhupada's saying, you can go out on book distribution, but there'll be no mercy for you. Isn't that interesting? So it's not just the activity, but it has to be connected with the desire of the guru. Is the guru pleased? Right? Just like I was telling my story, I wanted to take sannyas because I thought, being a sannyasi, I'm free to serve Prabhupada. There's no restriction. There's no other responsibility and obligation. And that wasn't pleasing to Prabhupada. So in my estimation, this was right. His estimation, no. So when you're coming up with solutions to conflict, and you come up with a solution that's not pleasing to Prabhupada, it's not a solution. It's actually detrimental. So that was kind of, I thought I made that point. I don't know if I did, but I'm just saying we have to be careful. Because the devotee was saying, if it's dharma, we have to do what's dharmic. Which of course we can't argue with that. But we can't define dharma in terms of ways that are not dharmic. And we just think, well, because I'm fighting for Dharma, everything I do is good. It may not be good. The methodology is within a cultural paradigm. And we have to know that it pleases Prabhupada. There's a story of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had a disciple, and that disciple he was a sannyasi, he did Ganga Parikrama. But Bhaktisiddhanta didn't want him to do it, and when he returned from Ganga Parikrama, which means he walked the whole Ganga, can you imagine? All the way from the sea, all the way up to the Gomukh. Wow, amazing. And when he got back, he came to Bhaktisiddhanta and said, I've returned from Ganga Parikrama. There's all this tapasya, all this chanting. And Bhaktisiddhanta said, I'm taking your sannyas away for disobeying me. So, he did tapasya, but it was in disobedience of the Guru. So, no mercy. So you don't get mercy just by the action, you get mercy by pleasing the Guru. So I think that's the point here. It's not just, here's a formula, I get mercy. And no, it has to be, you have to please your spiritual master. Can't, I read Bhagwatam every day, I chant every day, and my spiritual master and I have a horrible relationship, and I don't do anything he says. It doesn't work like that. And devotees don't like me, and I don't like them. But I chant Hare Krishna, so Krishna likes me. Well, Krishna likes you if you like devotees and devotees like you. Krishna likes you if you serve your Guru submissively. So I think that's the point that Prabhupada's making. That it's not ritualistic, that by numbers, by so many pujas and so many rounds and so many pages of Bhagavatam, automatically it's guaranteed. Because there's a mood there. Why are you doing it? My goal is to get love of Krishna. Why? So I can enjoy love of Krishna. All right. Krishna may say, no, I don't want a relationship with you if that's your mood. Why do you want to marry him? Oh, he has a lot of money. And then he finds out. It's like, get away. Right? So, okay. So, any other questions? Yes?
Sometimes some people will join temple and then they want to do some spiritual progress, they want to join temple, develop it. And then after some time they feel that their freedom got crushed because there is no people in the temple, we have to do so many services.
Yeah.
And this is a common problem in ISKCON nowadays.
Yes.
In the Western country, you can say. And so what's the reason for that?
What is the reason, or how do we deal with it?
Yeah, both.
Why are there few devotees in the temple? Or why are not leaders allowing devotees to do what they're inspired to do? Is that two questions or one?
Yeah.
That would require a history class. Every temple's different, but one of the observations that I have is that there was a shift from focus on brahmachari, and many men got married, and in order for people to live in the temple, at least single men and women, there generally have to be senior single men and women to take care of them. Otherwise, you don't really want to invite people in the temple if they're not taken care of. It would probably be worse than living outside. So in many places that's part of the problem. In some places I've been, they don't believe that anyone should live in temples. As strange as that may be. There's too many problems. So let's all live outside. There are temples in ISKCON where they have deity worship and nobody lives in the temple. It's all done by outside devotees. So it may vary from place to place. Some places they're not preaching, they're just skeleton crew, and so nobody's coming. And again, if people did come, they wouldn't know how to take care of them. And then in those places, obviously when somebody comes, they have a whole list of things that need to be done. So he may be a writer and this and that, but we need somebody to paint the wall. The paint's peeling off. But that's also part of living in the temple. And I think also we see that society has shifted a little bit, where people, I don't know about everywhere, but in America, people are more in the mood of lifestyle changes than living in ashrams. Like, I'll just add this. I'll add Krishna consciousness 20%, 30%, 40, 50. Whereas living in an ashram is, I do this 100%. And obviously it's kind of a difficult situation if you want people to live in the ashram and there's so few people living, then they would see that most people are living outside and you're asking me to live inside. Whereas most people living inside and few outside, it would make more sense or be more inspiring. So whether it's better they live inside or outside is another question. It would depend on them and it would depend on the temple situation. But I think there's been a shift in emphasis, both because of the reasons that I stated and just it evolved that way, that there's less emphasis on people living in temples, or perhaps, but you do see in areas where you have a good number of brahmacharis, it does attract more people. Or like Bhaktivedanta Manor, there are temples in America where they have a good group of brahmacharis. So it's a facility for people to live in the temple. And generally also, we were discussing this the other day, the idea of moving in a temple, especially for a young devotee, is to learn discipline. So it's to learn that surrender of doing anything you want. And usually after a period of time, if you've done anything that the temple president asks you, and you have certain tendencies for other service, then he'll say, okay, let's engage you now. You've paid your dues. As long as there's enough manpower and facility for you to do these other services. The problem is that sometimes in a small temple, the temple president may say, okay, you can do this college program, but there's nobody to go to the college with you. Do the university preaching, but you have to do it alone. So you go out alone. So that's also there, whether you want to do that or not. Obviously it involves a certain spirit that you need to create temples like that in ashrams. And some leaders feel like having a lot of people living in the temple is difficult because they have to deal with all those personal problems. They have to support them financially. So some leaders may prefer that it's just more people outside, and just the people living inside are good people, they're easy to deal with, they're self-reliant, they're cooperative. And if you get many that aren't, then it's actually makes it more difficult. So it's different ideas. There are temples like that, or projects where we just want to have a center, but nobody lives in it. We don't have to have a godbrother has a center like that. It's quite successful, but he doesn't want to manage people, so nobody lives there. Everybody lives outside. They have deities, they have programs, like a regular temple, but he prefers that. And if they want to move in a temple, there are other temples in the country they could move into. So that was his decision. And there may be other reasons. Or like in New York, they have this kirtan program, Roy Ram. And I was told that when he started doing it, it was just him, maybe another devotee or two devotees, and then it gradually built up and many people came. So when you provide a facility, it can also attract people. Every day we go out on Harinam all day. And some more brahmacharis came that wanted to do that, live like that. And somewhere in Eastern Europe they have a farm, it's just for brahmacharis. It's just a monastery. I forget where. Russia, Eastern Europe, Czech maybe, yeah. So that'll attract brahmacharis. So yeah. Depends on what you want to create. Anyone else want to answer his question as to why? I think a lot reflects on our mentality. So if, there was a time in my devotional life when I felt that the temples weren't being managed well enough for new people. So I would never ask a new person to move in the temple, or maybe not that specific temple. Even though generally when a person is evolved a little bit and I think they could be a devotee, I would encourage them. But in some situations I didn't, because I didn't have confidence they'd be taken well care of. So I never said, He said, no, I'm thinking of becoming a devotee. I go, that's good, you can do Krishna consciousness at home. Or there are other temples that might be better for you. So some situations are not good for new people. So knowing that, then some preachers even or temple president may not advise to move in the temple because they don't feel it's the best thing for that person. Or maybe that person's ready to move in the temple, but maybe the situation in the temple is just like political, or they're going through a phase and it wouldn't be good for that person to be in the temple because they'd be caught in the middle of a faction or something. What else? Yes.
You're talking about the modes, like talking about me, myself. I feel I'm more in the mode of passion actually.
Mm-hmm.
So everything, even the kind of food I eat or the way I eat.
Yes.
So these things are so much conditioned that even after understanding,
Yes.
they're not able to, give up that mode.
Yeah.
Maybe.
What he's saying is, Indians are not able to give up chili. Is that what you're saying?
No, not only that.
My experience anyway.
No, not about food.
I'm just joking.
I'm talking
But
about
it's true.
everything, the way I drink water or the way, way I maybe cook.
Mm-hmm.
So every activity I see that it's like
It's conditioned by,
it's in the mode of passion I feel,
Mm-hmm.
the way like even. So the point is maybe if we calculate in percentage, it's maybe 2 to 5% that I come in the mode of goodness sometimes, and then I want to continue, but then again something happens and it breaks, So the
Well, it depends. How are you defining passion? Because passion, the word passion and the mode of passion are two different things. Like if you go in the kitchen like a hurricane and put an offering together, it doesn't necessarily mean you're in the mode of passion. It just it might mean you just have a lot of energy today and you want to get it, and you're late, and you'll go, after the hurricane's over, you'll go clean the kitchen. Or that's just your personality type. That's how you do things. The mode of passion as a general description means you're doing it to satisfy some sensual interest. Like, I'm cooking this offering because I want everyone to glorify me as the best cook in ISKCON. And that's your whole motive. So if you're passionately engaged in the kitchen with a motive to please Krishna, technically you're not in the mode of passion, although you may be acting passionately. So I could say, we could reframe your question or rephrase it and say, sometimes I do devotional service in a passionate way because that's my nature. I'm a passionate person. So that may be true. Then the answer to that question, or similar questions, is to ask ourselves, what's the Krishna conscious way to do anything? What's the Krishna conscious way to cook, to eat, to drink water, to wear your clothes, to relate? Everything. And there you'll find, as you study the culture, there is a proper and improper way to do it. Right? How do we eat? We sit down, we offer a prayer. We're not, just yelling and screaming. How did Prabhupada cook? He cleaned everything after, whatever he used, he cleaned it immediately. That's the example he said. Right? Use a spoon, finished, wash it. Use a pot, finished, wash it. When he finished cooking, the kitchen was clean. So that's a more Krishna. So, I think that's very important to learn what are the Krishna. Krishna conscious. What's the Krishna conscious way to distribute books? You want to hear something interesting? There's a devotee who used to make life members, and he was a total Vaishya. So he would tell them all kinds of stories. Yeah, if you become a life member, you get this, you get that. You live in any temple, for the next 10 lifetimes, and you'll get all these books. And there were devotees who were Brahmins. They would convince people to become life members by preaching. So one time Prabhupada said, if you sell books by preaching, you're a Brahmin. And if you sell books, because some devotees would sell books, but they don't say anything about the book. Here, or they, they don't say much. Hey, it's a cool book. Where are you from? Yeah, my uncle lives there. Yeah, I like your sweater. Cool, Yeah, by the way, just give a donation, So Prabhupada said that's a Vaishya doing Brahminical work. And then when the Brahmin goes out, he said, it's ancient text, it teaches us inner satisfaction. Everybody's looking for happiness, right? Yeah, well, we don't know where to find it because we think it's outside, but it's not in things, it's actually within us. And it's, you ever felt like, it sounds, I'll take, so he's a Brahmin selling books. So that would be, I wouldn't say one's passionate and one isn't passionate. I would say it's more Brahminical, Vaishya, Shudra, I'm doing something in a Shudra way. I go into the bathroom. When I leave, there's a puddle on the floor. There was no puddle until I left, and there's water on the seat, water on the mirror, water all over the sink, water all over the floor. And Prabhupada said, a Brahmin leaves a place cleaner. So, does it mean I'm in the mode of passion? Not necessarily. It just means I'm passionate, or it means in my family, the floor of the bathroom and the shower were the same thing. So it was always wet, and water was everywhere because water is purifying. And so then you have to understand, well, what does it mean to be Brahminical? And so you understand, Brahmin, I should clean everywhere I go. I should make it cleaner than when I got there. And so I think that's important. And if you live in Vrindavan, you live in Mayapur, you live with devotees, you start to learn. Especially for us Westerners, we need to learn. And by being in India, you learn things. Eat with your right hand, not with your left hand. All these things. If I'm eating with my left hand, it doesn't mean I'm passionate. It just means I don't know. I should eat with my right hand. I don't know the culture. Want to hear a funny story? It's not funny, but it's interesting. It's a story about culture. Myself and Jayadvaita Swami took lunch at a devotee's home. And the devotee has a business, so he took off lunchtime to serve us. And then after we were finished, we washed up. We're just sitting there. And the devotee said, if you'd like to go, he said, whenever you'd like to go, the car is ready. Right? So Jayadvaita Swami said, if this were America, they would say, the car is ready, it's time to go. But because he's Indian, he said, whenever you'd like to go, the car is ready. He said, so Maharaj was saying that's culture. And Maharaj said to me, he actually has to go back to work now. But that's the way he's saying, I have to go to work. Can you get in the car? Whenever you're ready to go, the car's ready. That's the way he said it. So it's the same thing, but there's a way to do it. There's a culture of respect. So that's a respectful way. It's disrespectful. So the car's ready, we have to go. It's like, well, what if I don't want to go? What if I want to digest for another 5 minutes? Right? So I wouldn't say it's the mode of passion, but I could say it's just kind of a lack of culture. Anyway, it's something to think about. So what's the culture? The way, what you do, why you do, and how you do it. How is the culture? Why do I do it? Because Prabhupada wants me to. What do I do? I cook. But how? That's the key point. How do I do it? That's the bhakti culture, how you do it. How do I distribute books? How do I cook? How do I do kirtan? Right? Do my kirtans sound like a rock and roll concert, or does it sound like devotional calling to the Lord? It's the same kirtan. But how do I do it? Does that make any sense? Or you want to think about it? Or anyway, think about it when you're doing things. And think, what's the Krishna conscious way to do this? So when you go in the kitchen, you'll go in a devotional mood. Thinking how this will please Krishna and what's the proper way. Then, as I said, you'll clean up every step of the way. Just clean up. You finish cooking, the kitchen's clean. That's pretty sattvic. You want to hear something else interesting? I travel a lot, and I was once told that Burijan Prabhu said, when you travel by plane, your body ends up in the new place a few days before your mind, because your mind's still in the old place, and your because it's so fast and abrupt. You're just going from one culture to another, one country to another, and all of a sudden it's like we came from Italy, where it's sunny and warm. In Italian, they speak like this. They're not like Irish. They like the pizza, and they like to laugh and celebrate. And now all of a sudden you were in a cloudy, cold Ireland, and it's different. So, our mind's kind of still eating pizza, and here we are, like the body has to adjust. So, after doing all this traveling, I was thinking, we live in Mayapur, and we have a motor scooter. And the motor scooter doesn't go that fast, but it goes faster than a rickshaw and faster than a bullock cart. And I was thinking, I don't think we should travel faster than a horse. I think there's something wrong with traveling faster than that, because I don't feel right. I feel like things are changing too fast. And then one day I was in a class and Bhaktivedanta Swami quoted something and said, one should not travel faster than the speed of a bullock cart, because it disrupts the body and the mind. So it's just something to think about, passion. We do things so quickly, and I got my phone here, my computer here, my iPad here, I'm talking 4 conversations at once, and I don't think human life is meant for that. I think, if you do things at bullock cart speed, probably better. Mindfulness, and you can be present. Yeah. That's something to think about. And then the funniest thing in Mayapur is, if you've been to Mayapur, on the property they have roads, but the speed limit's 20 kilometers. And even on the street in Mayapur, you can't go that fast because there's always people walking and buses and cars driving in the wrong lanes. And there's so many devotees driving around with 350, 500 cc motorcycles. 20 kilometers an hour. It's like, what's wrong with this picture, Prabhu? So, and some devotees say, only bicycles, get rid of all motorized vehicles. We just want bicycles. We want to be sattvic in that sense. This is our culture. Maybe we should get bullock carts. And we do have bullock carts. So, some thoughts. How to be more sattvic. Is that okay? Or you think about it. All right. So yes.
Just a short comment about Prabhupada utilized all these just for his mission. So without that he wouldn't have come to the West.
Utilized.
Airplanes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and he personally disliked it, but he utilized it. And he, the story? In Mayapur, when they first came, they built a hut for Prabhupada. It's called chatai. It's thin pieces of bamboo, and they make little sheets, and those become walls. And so just have bamboo poles and the bamboo sheets, and then a mud floor. So that's where they started in Mayapur. And Prabhupada lived there with some of the devotees. So then they built the first building, which I think maybe was You've been to Mayapur before? Yeah. So they built the first building, I think it was called the Lotus Building, and then they built Prabhupada's room there. And that's where the temple, and they built a temple adjacent to it, and there are many guest rooms. So when it was finally finished, they said, Prabhupada, your rooms are finished. We can move into a new building. And Prabhupada said, I don't want to move into your Rajasic building. Rajasic means passionate. He says, I like my sattvic hut. So he actually didn't like it, and they said, but Prabhupada, you're the guru of the Hare Krishna movement, so you should be in that building because that's where the prestige is. He said, okay. So based on preaching, he did it, but based on personal taste, he didn't like it. So I think we should be aware of that. The Prabhupada did a lot of things for preaching that personally he didn't like. I think we all do that, Traveling by bullock cart would be good. Very calm. Take you, how long would it take you to get to Dublin? All day, like no passion, just like, hearing and chanting. So I'm sure some devotees would like that. They'd rather ride in a bullock cart than a car, but it's not practical. So Prabhupada sometimes would make those comments like, that's your American passionate way of doing it, but he didn't like it. He used Do you know Prabhupada used twigs for a toothbrush? Did you know that? He had those things that he preferred, but he would do what he had to do. There's another time, there was a talk about going through immigration that Prabhupada, they said, Prabhupada, it may be better that you don't wear a dhoti to go through this immigration. It may be a problem. And Prabhupada said, I'm prepared, but I don't want to. He said, I'll do it if I have to, but I don't want to. So it was like he was showing his likes, but his willingness to do it, to do whatever he had to do for Krishna. So it's good to know. Is that okay? Yeah. So yes, Prabhupada uses everything for Krishna. But it's not that he necessarily liked everything he was using, but he liked it because it was good for service. Right? One time I was with Prabhupada at a program, and they were doing kirtan with harmonium, and Prabhupada said, I don't think it's necessary. And then I think it was the discussion also that they go out to universities. I don't know what it's like here, but in America you can go out to a university and you can go out and sit out. Universities in America, they're huge. I think here in Europe they're smaller, but they're like, it'd take you like a half hour to walk from one end to the other. So there's lawns and you can go out and do kirtan. And so there was this discussion that you don't need the harmonium to do it, to the kirtan. And but he said, but it attracts people. So Prabhupada said, if you think it's necessary, okay. He said, but I don't think so. It was kind of like, okay, if you it's kind of like saying, I don't like it, but if it works for preaching. So there was that, I don't want to live in this Rajasic building, but for preaching I'll do it. Because who's going to come see, Prabhupada would say, if I live under a tree, who's going to come see me? So we have to build these, what did we say yesterday? These grotesque buildings. That's how Prabhupada saw them, as grotesque. He liked his chatai hut with a mud floor. He really did. And there are stories also when Prabhupada would leave cities in India on the train, and then they'd get out of the city and there was just farmland. He'd say, oh, it's so nice, this farmland is so nice. But where was he preaching? In the cities. He went to Calcutta and he said, this city is so hellish. He said, even though I was born here, I can't even live here now. And he said, if you preach here, you get like 1,000 times benefit because it's so austere. So Prabhupada did have his personal desire, but at the same time, he would use everything for Krishna, even though on his own, it was like, why do I want to use this? There's another funny story. They used to have these machines, you may remember. I think they're called teletype. It was a typewriter connected to a phone line, connected to another teletext typewriter. So you would type and it would go through the phone line and it would type it out. You ever seen those? What do they call them? Telex, yeah. That was the forerunner of the fax machine. So I think in Los Angeles at Spiritual Sky Incense, there's a big incense company devotees are running. They got one and they were really proud of it because it was like cutting edge technology. You could immediately send messages anywhere. Anyone who had a machine, and they wrote Prabhupada, and they were very proud we got this machine. And Prabhupada was like, you'll just use it to gossip. So how prophetic was that, considering what goes on the internet? He didn't even want them to have it. So sometimes, even though you might say you could utilize it for Krishna, he disliked it so much, and he saw the detriments of it. He was just like, don't do it. So you could imagine now what Prabhupada would say about the internet. That's a bit of gossip, don't you think? Like gossip on steroids? So it's interesting. Prabhupada did say things that, when looked at in light of what's going on today, indicate that there are a lot of things going on he wouldn't like. So it's just, but it's nice to know that Prabhupada engaged things that he himself wouldn't have personally used, but because you could use it in service, he did it, but he didn't personally like it. Is that okay? Yeah. What he personally liked and didn't like, you don't always know, but he definitely liked his hut. We know that. And he didn't like that building. The first time I went in one of those Chatai huts, Bhaktivedanta Purnaswami was there, and I walked in, and it was a hut of bunk beds, and it was a mud floor. And he was saying, "Can you feel the vibration in here? It's completely sattvic." It was just, you walk in there, and it was different than walking into a cement building. You could feel it. So Prabhupada liked that. Simplicity. Okay? We can stop. Is everyone satisfied? Anything else? Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.